Hey folks, welcome back. All right, look, once you've got your shop set up, you've got some products ready to sell, and you even have a few creative images and videos of those products that you're ready to use, the next question most sellers ask themselves is, how do I get people to actually buy all the cool stuff that I've created? And usually most sellers go about this in two ways. They either invest in paid ads or they commit to organic scroll stopping content, your Facebook, your Instagram, your blogs. But before deciding which path to go down, sellers ask themselves two questions. First, which one should I start with? And second, which one has the higher likelihood of actually making me sales fast? And today, I'm here with three experts and sellers who have all built successful businesses on different platforms, who have all gone down one path or the other or both to get there. Chris Heckman is a seller on Shopify who specializes in paid ads. Makayla Peluso, when she's not being an awesome co-host, got her start on Etsy, where she took the content route, but in a pretty interesting way. We're going to talk about that in just a sec. And David Salad is a seller on TikTok Shop who, just by the very nature of the platform he's on, has definitely had to create some great content for his store, his products, and of course himself. So welcome everybody to this debate. Now this is a debate, so I want a nice clean fight, so keep your hands where I can see them. But let's see if we can decide once and for all which path sellers should go down, paid ads or content. And Makayla, I want to start with you because when we were chatting about this, one of the things that you told me was that you went down the content route, but you posted in a place that most sellers might not think of first. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I use Pinterest. I think it's really overlooked and not utilized enough in the space of e-commerce because so many people are scrolling for inspiration and ideas, and you can sell to them without them even realizing you're trying to sell to them. And I went with that because when I was first starting out and trying to get traffic to my store, I didn't want to spend money because I didn't have the money to spend. And I decided, okay, I already have these mock-up photos that I'm taking all this time to create on Etsy. Why not use those photos and just post it on Pinterest with my same SEO? And it actually worked out really well for me because Pinterest is a search engine. So it's different than social media, and people are searching for things and they find them.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing about social media. That's the difference, is that social media is very algorithm driven. It's driven by trends that are happening right now. But like you said, Pinterest is a search engine. So when you put it up there, as long as people are searching with those keywords, it's going to pop up.
Exactly.
The other thing that I really like about it, what you said, is that you can reverse engineer your keywords from Pinterest as well. One of the biggest questions we get all the time is, all right, how do I come up with SEO? And of course, there's SEO tools. But if you're already using a tool like Pinterest, you already got the inspiration right then and there.
Absolutely. I would just take like my titles and tags that were working, on Etsy that people were searching for. And I was using those on both platforms and kind of like A/B testing, like what was working better. And yeah, those pins too, they last a long time and they bring traffic. So it definitely is something that you should try if you haven't.
Absolutely. Now, Chris, you're a Shopify seller. You're also a great educator. You've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs about setting up their business. We're going to be chatting about ads a little later. Chris is going to take us through a great walkthrough about setting up meta ads. But what's the biggest sort of problem you see sellers run into when they're trying to get their stores up and running and maybe they don't have a lot of idea about how to set up the right ads?
Yeah, the number one problem that people run into when it comes to paid ads is the exact same one that I ran into 7-8 years ago, which was, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show Mad Men, but I was a big fan of the show. Thought I was Don Draper, the whole 9 yards. And basically what that show taught me or misled me to think was that I had to be some amazing, like world-class marketer in order to see success. And the second thing that I took into it was that I needed to spend a lot of money in order to make a lot of money. You guys probably heard that. And so what that led me to do is really overcomplicating all of the ads that I was creating and then just ramping up spend because I thought that's what you do.
Right.
And so it led me investing a ton of time and effort into basically the wrong things. And we'll talk about more later on in our session about what those right things are, but that's the biggest mistake that I see.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Now, David, TikTok Shop is relatively new for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people get intimidated by content because, especially on TikTok, it doesn't feel like the traditional way, or at least what people consider, of getting that buyer traffic. Because you're right, we have ads, we have content, we have Pinterest. But what would you say to people who look at TikTok and look at that kind of content and say, that's not real brand building, that's not getting real buyer traffic?
Well, to all my critics, you are wrong.
Moving on. Thank you very much.
No, it does work, and especially on an app like TikTok, 95% of sales come from organic marketing, organic, traffic. And, to be able to link a video straight to a product on TikTok and it all being in one app, that's like never heard of. It's amazing. You don't have to click on a third-party website link, take you to a Shopify account. So, each to their own opinion, but if done right, content-driven selling is, just as good as any other branding out there. And, I'm proof of that, and thousands of others as well.
Definitely. So again, if you want to go down the content route, maybe also TikTok Shop is a great place to start if you're already making content, because you can already turn that attention into sales as well. All right, so we've set the scene a little bit. We've talked about your journeys, about how you set up your stores, the paths you chose. Hopefully this will give people some context as to why they're about to give the answers they're about to give, but let's get into the debate, because that's what we're here for. So the first round is all about the time and effort it takes to either set up great ads or either create great content. Which one is going to really pay off the most in terms of time and effort? Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I've done both the organic, like content-driven way, and then obviously paid ads, which is what I'm here to represent. Both can work over the long term, but if I have one choice, if I have one tool in my toolkit, and my number one goal is to get results as quickly as possible, I'm going with paid ads 10 times out of 10. Reason being is that it's just the epitome of being able to pour fuel on the fire as soon as you have something that's working well. And so, especially nowadays, you're able to get started so quickly with not a ton of experience. Now, not to say it's easy. We'll talk about how to make it easy in the next session. But point being, if my goal is to get results from day one, I have to go paid ads.
Right. David, I'm going to toss it to you next, because obviously you're a content king.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time creating that content. Now, in terms of time and the results you see, do you disagree with Chris that paid ads might be the way to go?
I really want to, but I can't.
Oh, no!
But wait, give me a sec. Only because, with paid ads, you get what you pay for.
Right.
And that's, if you want results really quick, then I'd go for paid ads. I think over the long term, or, first starting out, content and ads, they both take the same amount of time and effort. Maybe ads a bit longer because you need to learn, the interface. But at the end of the day, your ads are creatives. It's content too. And what most people do, especially now on Shopify or Facebook ads, they take content from TikTok and then they advertise that. So time and effort long term, I think definitely go for organic.
Yeah, definitely. And this just goes to show one phrase that came into mind, especially on TikTok, is that user-generated content. And a lot of times, the stuff that you create or people who have your products, the content that they create, that might be the greatest selling point for your brand, because people who are watching that content, like, they may not, see themselves in you, but they will see themselves in other people. In terms of like, not you, but like your store. They will see themselves as other people, because that gives them sort of like the proof of concept. Like, all right, cool, looks good on that guy, so maybe I should go after it the same. Well, I was hoping this round would be more contentious, but Mac, I'm gonna leave it to you. What do you think, in terms of time and effort, which one gives you results faster?
Well, faster is tough. I mean, that's kind of where I see a little bit of difficulty in the answer, because I personally think that with content, it's more approachable, especially if you're new, if you don't know what you're doing with ads, because in my experience, I just put money at ads and products weren't selling, and I lost a lot of money because I didn't know what I was doing. And I think a lot of people start that as, Chris said, where like, you spend money to make money, but then they're not doing it correctly. So I think that content is something that is more accessible to a lot of people, and something that you can, use to post and get a lot of eyes on your products for free. And then what I would say is use the data that you're seeing. And when you see that something has likes or even views or people in your search terms, then you can kind of decide like, maybe I should learn a little bit about ads, and maybe just use your time wisely rather than just picking like one and going at it, or seeing what, resonates more with you.
What I like about what you said is like, there's no definite path, but if you really are scared of the cost element of it, take your time, learn how to do the other side, or at least get those, get the data back from all the creatives that you're using, even if you're posting on social media for free. That's data. That's data that you can use to run effective ads. But I want to move on to our second round because of what you brought up, which is cost, right? A lot of people, including myself, when I think about running ads, I always think, like you just said, Mac, I don't want to pour good money after, and just waste it and not know what I'm doing. But I also see the content side of it, because I know a lot of people, when they hear content, they think, oh, do I got to have the best camera? Do I got to have, the best lights? Do I got to order all these samples? So in terms of cost, moving on to our next round, let's talk about whether ads or content really is, whether content is really free and whether ads really is the money maker that we think it is. David, let's start with you. What do you think?
Oh yeah, with content, no-brainer. I think a lot of people think that you need expensive equipment to get started, but honestly, it's compared to ads, it's a very low budget thing to do.
Right.
All you need is your phone, and I think the best type of content is the most organic. So don't think about ordering the most expensive camera, the lighting. You can do that, and I guess the biggest cost to making content or organic content is opportunity cost of your time. That's the biggest kind of cost there is. With me, I'm a seasoned pro now, but it takes me maybe around 5 minutes to make a video. So you can take the time off eventually as you get better. But for me, cost, no-brainer. Organic is the way.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I love about what you said, well, not one thing, you said so many great things, but it doesn't have to be complicated. I was just talking to Starla earlier about the Stanley Cups and how during the pandemic, I'm sure we all got Stanley Cup content. And that was because Stanley made a decision in 2020 that they were going to really invest into their affiliate and influencer space to make sure that people saw their Stanley Cups with influencers and other people, just to really get the sense that normal people use these products. And they were doing a pretty good job. But it wasn't until, I think, about 2022 or 2023 where somebody took a phone video of a car that was on fire. And inside the car was a Stanley Cup, safe and sound. And you would not believe how much that simple video pushed them forward. I'll give you proof of that. Before 2020, Stanley was a company that was pulling at least $70 million, which is no small change, of course, but in terms of revenue. And after 2023, I kid you not, that number went up to $750 million. Now, was it because of that video? Probably. But the point is, it was all, it wasn't a commercial that made them that money. It was just, something trending on social media, something that went viral. And I think that, that's something to keep in mind. Mac, what do you think? Which one sort of delivers more results in terms of the cost that you put in?
Well, what makes sense to me is either way, if you're going to make organic content or you're going to pay to advertise it, you still need the piece of content. And so in my eyes, why not take the time to either outsource or create the content and then test it, put it out there. And then if you want to spend money on it, you can. I think that you kind of need it in general, because that's a lot of what advertisements are as well, is content, whether it's user generated or a TikTok that wants to be promoted by the company, so I think that that's the really interesting perspective that I feel is you need the content either way. And so I feel that spending the time and putting it towards that and then what you can do with it is really up to you.
Yeah. And one of the things that, people will say, okay, creating content is technically free. But when we were chatting about this a while ago, Chris, one of the things that you said that I really enjoyed was that, do you think your time is free? Is the cost of your time, is that free? But I'll spin it back at you though, Chris. When it comes to, all right, free time and the effort that I put in versus the actual money that I put in on ads, in terms of cost, what do you think? Which one pays off more?
Yeah, well, there's the most obvious cost associated with ads, which is the ad spend.
Yeah.
That's the one that gets, all the limelight. But then there's the two other ones, which we've alluded to, which one is your time, certainly, which take whatever hourly rate you think you're worth, multiply that by however many hundreds of hours you have to put into making content. There's an additional cost. And then the third and final one is the opportunity cost of, we talked about at the beginning in the first round, how much faster are we able to get results with paid ads opposed to organic? Every month that we don't have X number of dollars coming in, we are incurring that cost. So when you add up all three of those things, paid ads comes out, in my mind, again, well above the rest because, and it didn't for me in the beginning because I just ramped up spend. But the biggest cost that's incurred, and paid ads are super expensive, when you don't know what you're doing and you're like me and you think you have to spend a ton, because you don't. What you have to do is spend a little bit, we recommend starting at $12.50 a day for a couple of days, and then learn, which is true no matter if we go organic, it doesn't matter, paid ads. You have to do a little bit, test it, and then see what feedback you get. Paid ads is absolutely no different. I think there's just some like mental paywall in our minds that it like when there's dollars attached, it kind of changes our decision making. But it's no different than anything else.
Definitely. And one thing that you said that really kind of changed the perspective for me is that even if you spend money on ads, if that's the route that you go down, what you're essentially buying is data. You're buying analytics. And so you don't want to think of it in the beginning with paid ads as like, okay, I'm just throwing good money and it's, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I'm gambling. You're not gambling. You're getting data back. And if that's not the data that you were hoping for, that's still data. That still gives you something to work with. Now let's move on to our next round in terms of skills. Because I know a lot of people, they think about time, they think about cost, but ultimately, I think what really intimidates people is, do I know what I'm doing with this stuff, right? We just talked about that with Mac, like, especially with ads, like, do I know how this works? And sometimes I know when I look at ad managers, it feels like flying a plane, to be honest with you, like all the details. But at the same time, creating content for a lot of people, if they're not comfortable on camera, if they don't know how to edit, if they don't know or at least even just like taking the time to make their products look great, that is also a skill that you have to learn. So let's start this round off with you, David. What do you? No, this one's Mac. You hold on, sir. In terms of the skills, calm down, David. All right, simmer down. In terms of the skills you need to get traffic, which one do you think is easier to pick up and which one is a little bit more difficult?
I would say that it's probably easier on the content side in my experience. And I think that's just because you can kind of see what's already working and, researching your trend or your product, see what's working and kind of create content off of that. And it might not be as much of a learning curve as it would be if, you know nothing about profit, revenue, how much money, what your ad spend, your ROAS, none of that. If you don't know how to do that, it's going to take you more time to learn. And I think with anything, obviously, the more time you put into it, the better you get at it. But with content, I think that there's a lot more out there that you can see, whether it's trending things or people that are in your niche and doing it already. And so I think that that's what I would say is that with content.
Yeah. And, in your story, one of the things that you said about Pinterest was that you were just using your mock-ups. Like, this wasn't stuff that you kind of hyper-created or, like, spent a lot. It was just, I made good-looking mock-ups, and I used that, and that worked.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, when they think of content, they think automatically video. Because, yeah, sure, a lot of the apps that we have, it is short-form video content. But we still have photos. And a lot of the apps that are popular, TikTok, Instagram, you can do photo slides of your products. You can use your mock-ups and just start with something fun, start with something that's like, grabbing, whether it's a trend or something in your niche. And then you can use that to create a video, but it's a photo slide. And then also using things like Pinterest and Facebook, posting that organically with that same SEO. It doesn't always have to be a video.
Right. Even though videos, like, especially I've heard on Etsy, they sell really well, but if you're just starting out, learn to crawl before you can walk, right? Start with the stuff that you do know. Chris, now I know you make ads look so easy in the way that we do them, and you will see. I know he's very humble, but you're right. It is a learning curve, and we're gonna show that in our next session. But talk to me for real. In terms of skills, do you think which one's easier to come up with, ads or content?
I mean, I've done both, and there's a big learning curve for either one. Honestly, I would make it a toss-up in terms of like, it's really like which hill do you want to climb? I would say in either case, and ads is no different, is the more objective, like the number one deciding factor that determines if somebody's going to be successful with paid ads or with content, in my experience, is how objective they're able to be. Like how well of a job do they do at looking at the numbers and then just removing all emotional filters and just receiving that feedback and then making the changes they have to make. And that is so much easier said than done. I know I didn't make it seem easy to say either, but it's like when you have put your all into something and you're just giving day after day after day, making all these designs, spending on the ads, and then you don't get the numbers you want, like that hits. And what's helped me through that is realizing that moments like that is exactly where people are either made or broken. And it's like pushing through that is where, you have to push through those moments, whether it's on content or on paid ads. I would say for me, being able to look at the numbers and be objective is the most important skill, but it's much less of like something, I don't think anybody's born with it, either a content skill or paid ads. It's choose your own adventure and just develop into the type of person that can be successful with that path.
I mean, like the hardest part about what you just said to me was just like, get rid of the emotional filters. Can you?
Yeah, just
Are
turn
you
it off.
capable of turning off your emotions? Because you're going to have to after a certain point.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, one of the things that we will say later is like, think like a scientist, right? Like, don't get too attached to, is it working for me? Or maybe it's me, maybe it's the skills. I mean, like, Mac, one of the things that we talked about is like, even coming up with designs. There's this idea of like, wait a minute, I put so much time and effort into my designs. What do you mean they're not selling? This is the stuff that I like. It should sell. That's not how it works. You have to go by demand, right? But David, I'm going to toss it back to you because again, TikTok is one of those things that people underestimate it by saying, yeah, it's just a simple video, but there is a skill to make sure that people are paying attention to your content. So in terms of like the analytical skill that it takes to create ads and the creative skill that it takes to come up with good content, which one do you think is easier or more difficult to learn?
They're both pretty much the same. With ads, I found it much more difficult because I'm more of a creative person. But yeah, you're right. It's not as easy as it seems. It took me maybe like 3 years to master, like really, really master content to get where I am today. But the small things you have to look at, especially analytics, is you need to have a good hook.
Right.
You need to keep people on for the first 10 seconds because that really boosts up your watch time, and then TikTok push it out, and then you get more views and more sales and more money. So that's great. Yeah, that's pretty much say on that.
It's true. And you know what? We make it sound simple, which is like, get them in the first 10 seconds. It's not, man. It takes time. It takes time. But, even with the creative skills, I want to go back because we've talked about this, which is like, we talked about just having your mock-ups. But even on TikTok, you can do, product images. You can do the slideshows. You can do just simple sort of close-ups of your product. That stuff is creative as well. So don't always think that you got to hop on TikTok and do a dance or, post your 5-minute stand-up. That's not how it works. Like, start simple and then grow from there. The other thing also that I think is worth mentioning is look at the content that you really like. Like, look at the content that other sellers are posting. Don't copy, but iterate, right? Like, try to use that. I always liken it to, if you're ever learning an instrument, the first thing that you start learning is covers, right? You start learning the music that other people are playing so that you can figure out the technique, you can figure out the sound, you can figure out what goes into a really good piece of music. And I would argue that selling and creating is very much the same. Set yourself a challenge to, okay, this is what that person did. I'm going to try it. I'm going to put my own spin on it, which is very important, but I'm going to try it out and recreate it. And over time, you'll go, okay, you know what? I'm going to adapt this for my brand. What works for me?
And that's a great point, Talish. And just really quick, I don't think many people realize that we're able to do the exact same thing on the paid ad side, and we do it all the time. Anytime you have a brand in mind or you see a new one, you're like, oh, I wonder how they're getting their customers. Just Google Facebook ad library and you're able to see, Facebook puts it out there for everybody to see exactly what ads they're currently running. And so very similar to how we're able to, see what content creators, what hooks and, backgrounds and all that kind of good stuff is performing best. We can do the exact same analysis on the paid ad side. It's pretty cool.
Well, I'm muddled. I don't know which one is winning right now, to be honest with you, because it's a mix of both. Both have their strong points. Both have their skills that you need to learn. I think we're starting to agree that starting from a content place is a safe place to start, especially if you're creating ads. But, again, getting that data. So let's see if we can try to solve this in our final round. And what I want to ask each of you is, okay, given the state of the world right now, with AI, how easy it is to come up with creative images, also with the libraries that are available to you so you can learn with what's working with ads. If you were to tell people a reliable choice right now to start with, either ads or content, which one would you choose and what's some bit of advice that you would give them? Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, not many people realize this, but with AI, obviously a lot of things are changing, but at least I, not until recently, realized that all of these AI advancements and the new algorithm improvements are working heavily in our favor as paid advertisers. Like Facebook, Google, Instagram, all of the major platforms, they all have their own algorithms that are getting smarter and smarter by the day. But not just smarter, they are getting so much more efficient for sellers who have large product catalogs. Who has a larger product catalog than print-on-demand sellers? The reason being, AI works really well with large data sets, not to get into specifics because I don't know them, but when you have a large product catalog, it works extremely well. And that allows us, kind of like we talked about when you're starting out, most important thing is just focus on making the best possible products in large volumes, no matter where you are. And that is exactly the kind of formula that's being rewarded on paid ad platforms.
And volume is so important because the more that you test, the more that you have, the greater your likelihood of actually getting to something that works, right? Whether it's ads, whether it's products. I mean, we're going to talk in a little bit in our ad session about, catalog ads and how you can test out every single product just with one single ad. So stay tuned for that. But David, I'm going to ask you, if reliable choice right now in this day and age, what advice would you give to someone looking to start out choosing between ads or content?
I think organic content is the way. Your most reliable person is yourself. So you can easily pick up the phone and start recording videos. Even if it's bad, pick it up, record 2-3 videos a day. And that's what I usually tell people. If you have a very first product, do that for a month. If nothing moves, move on to the next. And with ads, it is reliable, but it's not, sustainable because especially people starting out, they don't have a lot of money. And, especially my target audience is usually younger individuals who don't have jobs. So, the easiest way you can start is filming content.
Right. One of the controversial things you said in our planning meetings that we were starting, because I'm not going to let this go because it was really good. But, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, but you believe that ads is an outdated concept. Do you still believe that case after this debate?
Yeah, I do. I think the old way...
I'm just starting stuff right now. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, I think the old way of running ads is getting old. Chris mentioned the use of AI. I think AI is taking over the use of ads. But I also think organic content is also. You see TikTok Shop is on a massive rise right now, and everyone is in love with organic content. People come on TikTok, to be entertained and to, put forced ads in their face. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You want to make your content as organic as possible, and you can only do that with TikTok.
And you can have affiliates too on TikTok who can do that for you, which is a really big boon to TikTok Shop, because if you're ever worried, like I said, of doing that by yourself, you could, I think it's also through TikTok. It's like an affiliate creator place where you can get people to do that stuff for you. So, if you're stuck, always a great place to start. Mac, break this tie for me.
I don't get a rebuttal.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I want to hear what you have to say.
Look, Facebook ads, obviously it's been around for a long time. There's been a lot of misconceptions and accurate conceptions that have come and gone over the years. But when you actually look at the data, the cost of Facebook ads is actually the exact same that it's been over the past 10 years. And there's a reason that advertisers, all the biggest brands in the world, advertise there. They're not dumb. They know that they're getting conversions. And you can look up our stores and see, our ad libraries are filled with ads. There's a reason it works. Not to say there won't be incumbents and new opportunities and, shiny objects. They're everywhere. But at the end of the day, we need to focus on the bread and butter that is the best path forward for us growing the brand into what we want it to be. And yes, paid ads is a new skill set that takes time. It's an acquired taste, all of that. But at the end of the day, it's one of the best uses of our time overcoming that learning curve, because then not just in print on demand, but in anything else we do, it's always there for us. Same to be said for organic, but nobody's here saying that organic is outdated or a dinosaur. So
I started it, and I'm the one who's sticking up for you. It's I think we got it there. Break the tie, Mac. What do you think?
Well, I just kind of think about my own experience and the strategy that I used to scale my most successful store, which was, and it was on Etsy. So I think it's a little bit different because the way that Etsy ads are run are a lot different than a Meta or Google ad. You actually don't need as much knowledge. So I would say it was reliable for me, and what I've seen in other people I've helped is to use organic content, whether it's your mock-ups, the videos, post them around, even if it's on Pinterest that's linked directly to your Etsy listing or your store listing, and then you can collect that data and then start a low budget ad to what you're seeing is working. That's always worked for me, and what's cool on Etsy is you can set your budgets pretty low and only select 1 or 2 listings, and it's pay per click. So if no one's clicking on it, you're not really getting charged. So I think that's been reliable for me. I know it's kind of on both sides of of it, but I would definitely say content, because you can use it in a lot of different ways, and you can outsource if you're scared to make content, or use all these AI generators to make mock-ups. There's so many different ways, and then go from there.
So I think the answer that we're getting here is start content, figure out what works, double that, then use that as ads. Because ultimately, you're going to need both, right? I'm sure you can get by with one, but really the two-pronged approach, having the best of both worlds, just increases your likelihood of success overall.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for debating this with me today. I know we got a little personal at the end here, but you know what? That's what we're here for. But Chris is not going away, and neither should you, because coming up next, He and I are going to be joined by Alex Sheffy to figure out a crash course on setting up Meta and Etsy ads. Don't go away. We'll be right back with that in just a little bit.